guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. We're back again. Happy Sunday now. Sunday, January the 24th in 2021. It's about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the East Coast where I am. Just in case you're watching the replay, I'll put timestamps in the description below on YouTube in case you want to skip ahead. But I'm happy that all of you guys are here live with us right now for what feels like Groundhog's Day. We're back again for another attempt. We were here yesterday for Transporter-1. Big mission for SpaceX. First dedicated rideshare mission. 143 satellites that they are launching into a polar orbit, hopefully today. We were here yesterday for it, and we scrubbed for weather, and the weather's not looking great again today. But we did just go green for weather, so that's good news. About maybe like an hour and a half ago, we were red for weather. That was it was not looking good. Rain has been on and off today, so let's just hope the weather holds out. It's pretty much the same story as yesterday. Clouds, precipitation, electric field, all those kind of things is it's kind of our big concern today on whether or not we're going to see this thing launch. I really hope we do, but on the other hand, with all these clouds, it might mess with our view. So I don't want the clouds messing with our view, right? So, anyways, we'll get into what's happening here. So tell me where you're watching from. Let me know and say hello in the chat. I'm glad everybody's here with us. Oh, Space Gal over on Periscope, which is Alicia down in Titusville, I think, somewhere in that area, says it's okay right now here. So there's our local report from down at the Cape. Says it's okay right now. So that's good. That should be. I'm feeling better. It was looking. I saw a camera view from Chris Gebhardt from NASA Spaceflight that looked pretty good for now. Didn't look so good maybe like an hour ago, but it was looking pretty good. So, anyways, look at. I see everybody's here. We got Lake Stevens, Washington, Las Vegas. I need like a Viva Las Vegas soundbite button. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyways, let's see. Everyone awake? Well, kind of. We're getting to it. San Antonio, Sweden. We're all over the place. Jacksonville, UK, Yorkshire, England. Yorkshire? I feel like that's not how you say that. Is that how you say that? Sydney, Lake Wales, Titusville. There we go. Titusville locals. Well, hello, everybody. And over on Facebook, I see we got Georgia. Georgia, of course, Space Gal from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That's too local. That's too local. You're making me jealous. All right. Well, Cornwall, England, Indiana, Virginia Beach. This is where Trey's from. Germany, Italy, the motherland. My home country. Not really my home country. My family's home country. New Jersey. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks. I'm glad everybody's here and hanging out. So we're going to talk about what's happening or what the big deal is for today. So this is going to be Transporter-1. Transporter-1 is the first dedicated rideshare mission for SpaceX. So essentially there are 133 paying customers for paying customers with paying satellite, or let's see. There's not 133 customers. How do I want to say this? There's 133 satellites from paying customers. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a couple groups of them. So it's not each one's not a single customer, but then in addition to that, there are 10 Starlink satellites that are launching here as well. So there's a bunch of unique things. So this is the most number of satellites launched on a rocket ever. This is the first time that SpaceX is putting Starlink satellites into polar orbit, and this is only the second time that we are launching in a polar orbit from Cape Canaveral since the 1960s. We did it once on SAOCOM 1B back in August. You check out my video on that. We talked about the Cuban cow. Remember yesterday we were talking about the Cuban cow so much. So that's kind of a big deal that we're doing this a little more regularly. I did want to acknowledge there were a couple super chats, but they dropped off my screen. Where did they go? Hold on, one of these windows has it open. I saw him pop up. Who was super chatting me? Let's see. Oh, let me. Where are they? There they are. I knew they were around here somewhere. There you go. From Lim. said, I like that the vehicle has landed. Call out when SN8 explodes. That's in the intro. It says the Eagle has landed. The Eagle has landed. That's the, the famous Apollo 11 call out. I threw that in there. I thought it was kind of funny. The Eagle has landed with SN8. I mean, it did land, just not really in one piece. And Caesar Anita's. Thanks for your support, Caesar. Says, nice to have you here today. Hello from Colombia. Well, hello, Caesar. Thanks for your support. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. All right, let me get back into what we're launching here today so we can see what we've got going on. So we were talking about, this is heading to the Polar Orbiting Trek. That's probably one of the most exciting things for me. I love this concept here, or I love seeing this, particularly because there's so much to see for anybody that's down the east coast of Florida here. So this is what it's where we're launching. It's a polar orbit. It's a 97-degree inclination. 97-degree inclination means not only is it going to have to go south, but it's actually going to have to swing around and go southwest. So it's starting at Cape Canaveral, heads to the east briefly, then goes southeast, then it's going pretty much directly south, and then it's going to continue to swing around and go southwest. So we get this huge swinging motion to go basically around Florida, fly over Cuba. Hopefully we leave the cows alone this time. And we'll be in this 97-degree inclination here that's backwards. Why they're not launching this from Vandenberg, we don't exactly know, but we can kind of speculate why. This booster flew the Demo 2 mission. It was already on the East Coast. It's flown a couple of other missions, but this is primarily was the Demo 2 booster. It was already on the East Coast. To truck it to the West Coast, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of downtime while you're just waiting for the booster to go to the West Coast. So it's already here. So if they can, and they have most of their operations are at Cape Canaveral. So if they can do it from here, which is nice now that we have this polar corridor that we can launch satellites from the East Coast, why not do it? So that's what we've got today. We also have a drone ship landing for the booster, which is kind of interesting, heading way out here, almost, kind of off the coast of Cuba. It's not quite there yet, but kind of in this direction here. Then you can see kind of the hazard zones. We'll take a look at the hazard map, but you can see hazard zones that are over here, hazard zones over here. You've got the booster that's going to land. Then we also have fairings that are going to land. I don't believe we're going to see a catch today. They said they were not going to catch them yesterday, so it's likely going to be a soft landing in the water, and then scoop them out of the water to still for reuse. So yeah, kind of interesting. And if you're along the East Coast here, if it's not too cloudy, you probably get a really awesome view, because it's kind of cool that we get to see this profile view that we don't normally see. The profile view from the side, especially when you get separation. It's not, hopefully we don't see separation of this. This is a Starship. It's not supposed to separate, but anyways. So you get kind of a cool view of that. If you've got, you're probably going to need a nice long lens camera zoom there, but there'll be a bunch of nice photographers that'll probably get views of this, assuming it's not too cloudy for the views. And then if you're in like the Miami area, you might see entry burn and landing burn even off the coast, or at least maybe entry burn, maybe a portion of landing burn. It might be too far off for landing burn, I don't know. But yeah, it's a very interesting trajectory. I really like that. But the big question today is going to be weather. So here's what we're looking at right now for weather. It's really the cloud coverage is a concern. We've got clouds over the Cape right now. As I said, it was red earlier this morning for weather, meaning it was no-go conditions. It switched to green, which is okay. There were two conditions that were violated this morning. One was the same thing as yesterday, that electric field, surface electric field Mills rule that basically says the environment's electrified at around ground level. Not good. Induced lightning during launch, which is what happened during Apollo 12. And then the other one was the cumulus cloud rule, which is thick cumulus clouds. Again, it's a lightning concern. You don't want to have lightning induced during the launch itself, when the exhaust from the rocket, basically creates this stream of charged particles that you can get lightning. That's no good. So anyways, that's what violated it this morning. There's also been some precipitation, a little bit, not a ton, I don't think. Let's switch over to the radar here. So here's our radar. You can see there's precipitation off the coast. That's not too bad. It gets up and over the precipitation pretty quickly, but we don't want it directly over the launch site, really. So a little bit of precipitation in the area. Winds were looking okay. Ground level winds were 6 miles per hour. That's like nothing, no problem for ground level winds. Upper level winds, a little bit quick, but still I think we're in good shape for this. 110 mile per hour upper level winds, that's not too bad. That'll be okay. Sounds quick for you and I, maybe standing on the ground, but the rocket should be okay for that. Now, if you were up here, maybe in this region, Virginia Beach region, 155 miles per hour. Now you're getting up there. That's a little concerning, even for a launch. But down here, 110. That's all right. Somebody in chat convert that to metric for me for our international friends that use not imperial units, which is pretty much the entire world. All right, what else did I have to say today? Oh, and the other, I guess the other thing we should talk about is Starlink, because there are 10 Starlink satellites on here. Basically, there's 133 other satellites that are from paying customers, and then 10 Starlink satellites that they just snuck into the flight because they could fit them in. So these are going into polar orbit. So this is our Starlink web that we have right now. You can see it's getting the web is being woven nicely across the globe, but up here the polar regions we've got nothing. No polar coverage, nothing for the penguins, nothing for Santa. We got to get Santa some Starlink. And of course the penguins. Don't forget the penguins. So this is only going to be 10 Starlink satellites, though, so nothing, it's not like we're going to have instant coverage after this, but it's a good start to start getting some polar coverage. This will be the first ones that actually go into polar orbit. Everything else has been at this 50-something degree inclination here. So this will be the first one that's in polar at this 97-degree inclination. And remember, the Starlink satellites have their own onboard propulsion system, so they can move around a little bit if they have to. They may not stay exactly at 97. I think it's 97.5 degree inclination, but it should be pretty close. All right, well, I think that's all I got for you to get you up to speed. The question really is, let's see, SpaceX hasn't gone live. Oh, what happened here? Do that again. I wanted to go here. Here? Here. No? Here. Okay. It doesn't want to switch on me. This was happening yesterday too, and I can switch there, I can switch here, there. Okay. I don't know why, I don't know what's happening with my OBS. For some reason, it doesn't want to do that, but we'll troubleshoot that afterwards. All right, let me go through and see what you guys are saying. I saw some comments flying by here a little bit while we wait for SpaceX, not Starlink, SpaceX to come online. They're almost ready. We ought to put this, oh no, they're not online yet, so they should be here in just a couple minutes, and then we'll listen into them. Let's see. Maybe they're not doing East Coast launch because they don't have any drone ships on that side. No, we've got 2 drone ships out on the East Coast, and this is a polar track, so. Oh, an error occurred. What is that? Oh, it was SpaceX trying to go live, and my video kind of freaked out for a minute, so. All right, throw that over here. We'll turn this down. We'll turn this here. Make sure we're up and ready to go. Let's see, let's move this over here. We're moving some things around. Okay, better. All right, let me see. Oh, and I saw a couple. Let's see. Alex Benjamin became a member of the channel. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for your support. Heather Smith sent a super chat. Did you get any sleep? I did. It was not too bad, actually. We're in good shape. I did have to take a nap yesterday because I was up early for this yesterday. And photographer Luke with the hype sticker. Thanks for your support, photographer Luke. Appreciate that. I wish I could show. I need to figure out a way that I could show those stickers on the stream. I feel like when somebody sends a super sticker, I should be able to like show it, like, I don't know, here, make it pop up or something. That'd be kind of cool, right? All right, let's see. The NASA administrator Jim Bridenstine's leaving the Senate. If you heard about that, well, I know he was leaving. Does he have an event today? I mean, I know he's left the administrator position, and he is no longer the NASA administrator.
American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
But yeah, I don't know about anything from today. What do astronauts do after landing? Do they basically just sit about until they're reassigned to another mission in like 4 years? They're generally going to go through a whole debriefing and things like that. So they're going to go, like Bob and Doug share their entire experience. They actually kind of train. They're not training, but they go and train alongside with the Crew 1 mission astronauts to kind of tell them about how their experience was, the noises they heard, the things that they had to do, all their, all the little nitty-gritty details that they don't really even share with us. But they're full of, that's kind of all their post-mission duties, is to get everybody up to speed. What happened? What did you experience? What did, tell us everything. Tell us everything. And that's kind of the initial thing that they would do. And then they're usually part of some sort of team. It can be, they might be part of mission control. They might sit on console, part of the astronaut office. For future missions, it always helps to have someone with experience to communicate with the astronauts that might be on their current mission. Let's see, SC Edge 77. How many satellites are in orbit total? How do they avoid hitting them in launch? It's got to be getting more difficult with everything in orbit. It's really not. We have only 5,000 satellites or so in orbit, somewhere in that range. I don't know the exact number, but it's around 5,000 total satellites in orbit, which is not much more than we have. It's not like a significantly huge number compared to, say, planes in the sky. And if you look up in the sky and you're like, how can I find a hole through all these planes in the sky? There's plenty of room up there. The space in the sky is huge. It's so huge. So it sounds like a lot of satellites, but remember, these are teensy tiny satellites compared to the size of our planet. So it's not really a big deal at all. The biggest issue with Starlink is really astrophotography and studying the night sky, because you can get streaks in your image, and that's the main concern for people, is that kind of stuff. But being able to find a hole to get through, not a big deal. They're in predictable paths, so it's very easy to figure out how to get past them. So, all right. Oh, it did it again. Okay, well, let's see. Can we go here? Then we'll go here. Nope, then we'll go here. All right, let's listen in. SpaceX is live. See what they have to say here today.
If you joined us yesterday, we scrubbed for weather, specifically for the surface electricity field rule. Today's weather has also been a bit challenging, but we're currently looking good for our T0 liftoff time. On board this mission are 133 commercial and government spacecraft, in addition to 10 Starlink satellites, the most spacecraft ever deployed on a single mission. This count includes CubeSats, microsats, and 2 orbital transfer vehicles, sometimes called space tugs, which will deploy their spacecraft after separating from Falcon 9. SpaceX created the Smallsat Rideshare program to provide small satellite operators with competitive pricing, increased flight opportunities, flexibility, and most importantly, a ride to space on SpaceX's Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, as well as Starship in the not-too-distant future. For more details on our rideshare program or to reserve your spot, head over to our website at spacex.com/rideshare. Now let's take a look at Falcon 9 out on the pad at the Cape. You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9, our 70-meter, 2-stage liquid fueled launch vehicle. Today's mission is the 5th flight for this particular booster. Its first 4 flights were all in 2020, which included our Crew Dragon Demo 2 mission for NASA in May, the Anasis 2 mission in July, a Starlink mission in October, and most recently, CRS-21 in December. You can tell by the re-entry soot at the bottom of the vehicle that this booster has flown before. That bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage. Its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space and then separate from the rest of the rocket. From there, it will make its way back to Earth and target a landing on a recovery vessel. Of course, I Still Love You. There she is on screen. On top of the first stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage. This composite material houses the larger nozzle of the second stage engine. And then on top of the inner stage is the Falcon 9 second stage, which will take the payload to its eventual destination in orbit. After the first stage separates about 2.5 minutes into flight, the second stage will then carry the 143 spacecraft to orbit. In order to get to the intended orbit today, we'll need to light our second stage twice before deploying all of our payloads. And at the top of the rocket, you'll notice a large nose cone. This is called the fairing. It's a composite structure and protects the rocket from the forces of ascent and also houses our payloads. Once the vehicle is outside of the Earth's atmosphere, the fairing separates to expose the satellites to space. For today's mission, both fairings halves are brand new, And our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves from the water following landing.
Looks nice and sunny out there.
And finally, the large truss structure next to Falcon 9 is called the Transporter Erector. We also refer to it as the TE. Its job is to roll Falcon 9 out to the launch pad, raise it to a vertical launch position, and also route power, fluids, and communication to the rocket and satellite. It will retract away from the rocket slightly around the T-minus 4.5 minute mark, providing clearance for Falcon 9 to lift off.
I saw Michael asked about max Q and what it is. When we get a little bit of a break here, I'll explain that in more. It'll take me a little bit. So remind me maybe after launch, Michael, and I'll answer the max Q question.
Propellant load and launch go no go pole at the T-minus 38 minute mark. Weather is still tracking to be green for a T0 liftoff. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since the T-minus 35 minute mark.
Oh, I see
the
blue
vehicle
skies.
uses a refined form of kerosene called RP1 for its fuel and super chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as its oxidizer. Currently, RP1 is fully loaded on the second stage and nearly fully loaded on the first stage. Liquid oxygen is currently loading and currently underway on both stages. As for helium, it began loading before the webcast went live and will continue to top off until about 1.5 minutes before launch. We use helium as a pressurant as the propellants are pulled out by the engine pumps. In about a minute, around T-minus 7 minutes, engine chilling will begin. This is where we allow a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen to flow into the Merlin engine turbopumps prior to the full flow of LOX to avoid any thermal shocks to the system. Checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators will also be underway. This is known as the engine wiggle test. We move the thrust chamber slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is a go for flight. The first stage actually does the same test, but it happens just seconds before ignition.
Oh, I hear it. She's breathing.
So far, the vehicle is healthy. We are currently working no issues. The range is standing by and currently green for launch.
Oh, look at the clouds in the distance.
Weather is a tracking item, but right now we are green for a T0 liftoff time.
All right, we're green. Look at those clouds in the distance, though, doesn't it? It looks a little dark out there. But that's all right. We only need a small hole.
We are currently 7 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. In about 2 minutes, the Transporter-1 will start to retract away and enter its pre-launch position about 2 degrees from the rocket. At liftoff, hydraulics will move it to a position about 45 degrees away from the rocket. Again, around the T-minus 4.5 minute mark, you will hear some hiss and pop, and that's pressure venting from the rocket and the plumbing of the Transporter Erector.
Why is the first stage so black? This is a reused first stage booster. It's already flown. It's a bunch of soot. They don't repaint it. They don't really clean it except for
the vehicle remains
to check some
in
of the
good health.
Lines.
We're continuing to load propellant on both the first and second stages.
There's really no reason
You can see that
to
we've had
repaint
some
it.
gaseous oxygen venting from Falcon 9.
So the purpose of the booster reuse, you can see there
About a
are
minute
some
before
lines
liftoff,
on there.
You'll hear the announcement that Falcon 9 is in startup,
talk.
which means that the rocket's own internal flight computers are now autonomously controlling the launch countdown.
You can see some white lines on the booster. Those are really inspection lines where they're trying to inspect the booster. So you can see there's a couple vertical and a couple horizontal lines. Those are inspection lines. So other than that, they don't. The idea of reusing the booster is to reuse it as quickly as possible. So why spend time and money painting
We'll
it?
make another attempt sometime in the future, and we'll let you know as soon as we know that date.
Right, and Fast Guy on Periscope says paint has weight. Yeah, paint has weight. It has
And
a
as
cost.
I mentioned earlier, today's launch is the first of SpaceX's dedicated smallsat rideshare program, which provides small satellite operators with competitive pricing and increased flight opportunities on board the world's most advanced and proven launch vehicles. As part of the program, we also offer traditional rideshare opportunities on existing low Earth orbit missions and on SpaceX's Starlink missions, which launch about once a month. Traditionally, it's pretty hard to find affordable space on a rocket for a small satellite. Our rideshare program groups small sats together, making it easier to purchase a less expensive ticket to orbit on a predictable schedule. And unlike traditional rideshare opportunities, our rideshare missions are not dependent on a primary payload. Our missions are pre-scheduled and will not be held up by delays with co-passengers. So that means that if you're ready to fly during the scheduled launch period, you will fly. Since we announced the program, we have launched 4 rideshare missions, including 2 Starlink missions with Planet on board, 1 Starlink mission with spaceflight riding along, as well as the Southcom 1B mission. And in fact, one of these customers flew less than 6 months after their contract with SpaceX, which is a pretty remarkable turnaround time. We're really excited for today's mission, not only because it's the first dedicated rideshare, but because it will also be the most spacecraft ever deployed on a single mission.
That was a photo of all the
spacecraft. As I mentioned earlier, in addition to the more than 130 small satellites on board for our commercial and government customers, we have 10 Starlink satellites of our own riding along. And as many of you may know, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. The 10 Starlink satellites launching aboard this mission will also be the first Starlink satellites deployed to a polar orbit, and many of the future Starlink sats flying to the polar orbit will actually launch from our Vandenberg site here in California. The Vandenberg team is hiring for a number of open positions to support our growing operations there. If you're interested in working on the launch team that will help all kinds of payloads launch from our West Coast facility, head over to spacex.com/careers and apply.
All right, we're coming down to it here now. Hopefully the weather stays green. I don't have the extra telemetry today. Lucas asked if we have the augmented telemetry.
3 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of the countdown. The payload and vehicle remain healthy, and we're still currently tracking weather to be green for a T0 liftoff at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Does that mean it is green? What does that? So we're tracking weather to be green. What does that mean? Hopefully that means it's staying green. Hear a bit of venting. We're going to have one final big vent at about 1 minute and 35 seconds.
In about 30 seconds, around the T-minus 2 minute mark, we should finish liquid oxygen loading, and that will wrap up the final propellant loading for Falcon 9.
Final big vent will be at 1 minute 35. That's where they drain the transporter erector lines and everything else out of there, getting ready for launch. You'll see a big vent coming from around the interstage area, but it's coming from the transporter erector. You can hear that venting. The clouds seem like they're getting closer.
So just joining us. This is the Transporter-1 mission for SpaceX, the 3rd launch of 2021,
just
and the first dedicated smallsat rideshare mission for SpaceX.
Send it. Look at the blue sky. Seems like it's getting smaller.
We just heard the call out that LOX loading is completed. Again, that is the last of propellant loading for Falcon 9.
Here's that big vent right there. You can see the transporter erector venting.
And on screen, you can start to see some white clouds forming around Falcon 9. That is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. That is liquid oxygen condensing as it meets the warmer ambient temperatures of the Florida air.
Here we go. Normal vent. That's completely normal. The big gate will happen at 30 seconds. If they're going to scrub for weather, they would normally do it at 30 seconds. So if we can make it past 30, that'd be good.
Falcon 9's in startup.
If we get the go from the launch director,
is in startup. Both stages are beginning to pressurize for launch. In a few seconds here, we should be hearing the launch director give the final go for liftoff.
LD on countdown 1, go for launch.
Yes, that's good news. That's good news for
there
weather.
You heard it. That is the final go for launch at T-minus 35 seconds. All systems are go for the Transporter-1 mission. Let's listen and watch in as we lift off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida.
Here we go. Looks like we're go. Is the chat go? Tell me in chat. Go, no go. Are you ready? Here we go.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
T plus 43 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has cleared the tower and is currently throttling down to prepare for max Q at around the T plus 1 minute and 12 second mark. Max Q is where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Look at that. Did you see how dark those clouds were in the distance at launch? Oh, look at that. Oh, that's a nice view. Get out of the way, Tori. I have a way to... Here.
Max Q.
I'll just get myself out of the way.
Just past max Q. That is a really cool tracking shot of Falcon 9. All is looking good with the stage 1 trajectory. In about a minute, we have 3 events coming up in quick succession. First up is main engine cutoff. That's where the 9 engines on the first stage will shut off, followed by stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from one another. Shortly after that, we'll have second engine start 1. The Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite its engine and continue its journey into orbit.
MVAC engine chill has begun.
Look at this. What a view. This is a pretty cool view. It's looking nice today. You see that plume start, the exhaust plume start to expand out. Talked about that in the last, in the Virgin Orbit video this past week. Look at how far it expands out.
We're about 20 seconds away from main engine cutoff, the start of those 3 events happening in rapid succession.
We're coming up on Miko here, about just seconds away. I'm gonna go back down here.
Main engine cutoff.
There it is. Oh, look at this. We're gonna see separation from the ground. Oh no. There you go.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stiffener ring breaks off right here, off the engine bell, right after ignition. There it goes.
Coming up in a few seconds, we should have the fairing deploy.
MVAC ignition.
There goes the grid fins.
Bearing separation confirmed.
Oh, it's a little shaky. Wow, whoa, why is it so shaky?
You can see the 2 fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 143 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. And as a reminder, our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today from the water.
I don't like how shaky that was. That didn't seem all right. See our colony of space mice collecting up here. We can talk about that afterwards.
We're at T plus 3 minutes and 30 seconds into flight. We have a couple of views on screen right now. On the right-hand side is a view of the second stage, specifically the MVAC engine. It's currently in the first of its 2 MVAC burns. This burn should last for about another 5 minutes or so.
Yep, remember.
And on the left-hand side of the screen is a view from the top of our first stage looking down. The next milestone for the first stage will be its re-entry burn. Falcon 9 needs to execute an entry burn to slow itself down before hitting the dense parts of the atmosphere. Without this burn, relying on the atmosphere alone to slow Falcon 9 down will put unnecessary strain on the rocket.
Remember, the booster is still ascending, actually. It's still going up. It's actually not coming down yet. It's still going up.
Is coming up at around the T plus 7 minute and 47 minute mark, just a few minutes from now.
So this is going down the east coast of Florida. The booster's going to land down near the coast of Cuba, really, just north of Cuba.
For those just joining us, this is the Transporter-1 mission for SpaceX, the first dedicated smallsat rideshare program mission, and it's also the 3rd mission of 2021. We're just waiting on the next major event for this mission, which is the first stage entry burn. That's going to be happening around the T plus 7 minute and 47 mark.
Is it landing on a drone ship? Yes, it will be landing on the drone ship in the ocean, north of Cuba. Staying well away from the Cuban cows.
You see some periodic bursts of gas from the first stage. That is nitrogen from our attitude control systems. They help to orient the first stage as it continues to make its descent back towards Earth.
There we go. Somebody said, why can't we see this booster view during landing? So usually we lose the camera during landing because it goes out of range for from a ground station. We lose it like just as it comes through the clouds.
As we get closer to the Earth, you'll start to notice those honeycomb-like structures on the left-hand side of your screen start to move and pivot. Those are our hypersonic grid fins, and those help to steer the first stage back as it returns back to Earth.
But with that being said, that we normally lose the footage. That's when it goes way out to sea. Oh,
as for the second
saw a little
stage,
space caterpillar.
that performance looks nominal.
We might possibly get
Just
full
a few
video
seconds
today.
after we finish the stage 1 entry burn, we'll be shutting off the second stage Merlin vacuum engine and enter a small coast phase. Again, we'll need to relight this engine later on in the mission to get to our eventual destination in orbit.
What happens to the second stage once the satellites are released? It's going to deorbit and break up in the atmosphere. I did see the space caterpillar. Now the booster is coming down now. It's about a minute, almost like 2 minutes past apogee. So it is coming down now. We'll start to see those
FTS is saved.
clouds get a little closer.
We are about 45 seconds away from that stage 1 entry burn. For the entry burn, it is a 3-engine burn, so 3 of the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will relight and start to slow the stage down before it hits the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
So it'll be a 3-engine entry burn, followed by a single-engine landing burn. So they don't use all 9 engines for entry and landing. Coming up on the entry burn should be in about 15 seconds. Oh, see a little movement there.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
There we go. Did it start up? There it goes. Okay. Remember, the video feed is always behind the callouts.
There's the entry burn. 3 of the 9 Merlin engines have relit. This burn is expected to last for about 30 seconds.
Second stage and terminal guidance.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And you can see on screen the entry burn has concluded, and in just a few seconds we should be hearing the call out for second engine cutoff, where we'll shut down the second stage MVAC engine.
Now the grid fins are really going to do some pushing over to the drone ship. Landing burn coming up here in about another.
FTS is saved.
Oh, we lost it.
There's the second stage.
Also signal stage 1, Cape expected.
We lost signal on both stages. We got nothing.
Second stage has
Show us
shut down its
something.
engine.
Seco, we got second stage. Should be in orbit now.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be attempting to recover the booster for a 5th time
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
on our drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You.
Here it
The
is.
first stage has one more burn left, the landing burn, and it begins just before we touch down and provides the booster with a soft descent before we land. That should be starting up
Landing
anytime
burn.
now.
Stick to landing. Let's get some clean video, maybe.
And we did get confirmation of the second stage that it did reach a good parking orbit.
Where is it? Coming in.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Landing legs. Stick it.
LS stage 2, Cape
Come
Canaveral
on. Yeah.
expected.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, clean video too, kind of.
And Falcon 9 returns safely once again. That is the 5th
Yeah.
time for this particular booster, and the 73rd recovery of an orbital class rocket. Great way to start off the mission and a great way to start off the Sunday. We're
right.
now going to coast for the next 45 minutes or so while we wait for SES2, or second engine start number 2. We're going to leave you with an animation that shows you where we're at in the coast phase, and we'll see you back here at the T plus 54 minute mark.
All right, so there we go. They're going to take a little bit of a break, but not us. We're going to hang out here for a bit. That was pretty cool. I was hoping we'd get the booster video all the way through, but doesn't look like it. But there we go. So at this point now, so now we've got a long wait. All right, we're gonna hang out for a bit. I was even gonna have I had Kerbal up for a little while, but I guess I better open that back up and we'll get it ready. We're gonna mess around with Kerbal for a bit or something, but we'll probably do some replays here. I do have to talk about Max Q. That's what Michael had asked. So Max Q, thanks for the reminder there, Michael, over on Facebook. A lot of people confused about Max Q. Max Q is essentially the point. There's a couple things that happen at Max Q which are concerning. The main definition of Max Q is really because that's the point at which the speed of the rocket and the pressure of the atmosphere meet at their peak, right? So as you go up, the atmospheric pressure drops, so you get less drag. But as you're on the ground, the rocket's not going very fast, so there's not much force being imparted on the rocket. So as the rocket speeds up, you get more atmospheric drag, more forces being applied to the rocket itself, but also the atmosphere is coming down. Atmosphere coming down, rocket going, or I guess it would have to be this way, rocket going up, atmosphere coming down, and where they, whoop, right there, that's Max Q. The other interesting thing about Max Q is it also happens to be generally right about the same altitude as where your upper level winds are. So you get all those things come together pretty much right at Max Q. You get your upper level wind shear, that's where your most potential is for upper level wind shear and problems there. You got pressure, atmospheric pressure, speed of the rocket, all those things come together, and that's why it's kind of a critical point to get through to be like, all right, we did it. You also, the rocket goes through engine throttling too. So as you go up, they start with full power engines, they throttle them back down, they go into what's called the throttle bucket, where it's really called a throttle bucket because if you look at like the amount of throttle, it's like 100%, drops down, you know, I forget what it's at, like 85%, and comes back up 100%. And that little dip there is the throttle bucket. So a lot of things happen at Max Q. Throttles down, goes through Max Q, throttles back up, and you're back to it. So it's a particularly significant event because of all those things happening during the flight, and then everything else, it kind of cruises from there. So that's the main concern behind Max Q. I hope that's clear enough. Did I miss anything? Did I forget anything? So what has the Q got to do with anything? Good question. Q is the symbol used for pressure in mathematics. That's where the Q comes from. All right, let's see. Press the deorbitate button. Okay. It's gonna deorbitate. That's an easy request. I like that. How many Falcon 9 boosters are there? I don't know how many are active right now, but I can find that out for you probably. How many are active? And I'll get a replay up here in just a second so we can watch the replay together for anybody that missed it. But let me see. I can tell you how many. I think I have it here. Boosters. No. Vehicles, no. Boost count, no. Core history. Maybe that's it. Let me. So there's 58, 49. Is that 2? 61 is 3. 74. 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's at least 8. Oh no. Publicly assigned or inferred mission, there are 8 cores. There are 13 flight-worthy cores currently, meaning first stage booster. There are 5 with unknown assignments. There are 8 that are either assigned or inferred to a mission, and then there are 16 that are inactive or retired. And then there's another 44 that have been lost, either expended or destroyed of some sort. So there you go. So it looks like there's 13 cores currently in their active fleet, 13 boosters. Space mice. This is a good question. This comes up every single time. We talk about the space mice real quick. Let you in on the inner circle on what is a space mouse. So right up here, I'll go to, how about this view? Right up here, you can see there's a little bit of something kind of traveling along this pipe here. You can see it pop in. This is liquid oxygen. It's solidified liquid oxygen. You see it pop in right there. There's a little bit, there's a bigger cluster right here. This is basically solidified oxygen that comes out of the vent port. There's a vent port right here. And there's also a vent port right here. And when it comes out, occasionally it'll solidify, and occasionally it'll clump up and get stuck on this pipe right here, and it'll just collect right there. It'll generally evaporate away, or sometimes it'll vibrate free, but yeah, it's just, you can see, if you look carefully right here, let me back that up a little bit. If you look carefully right here at this vent port, you can kind of see the liquid oxygen venting out of this port right here. It's tough to see. If you look real carefully, you can kind of see a little bit of venting right above the port. It's coming out this direction. But yeah, little pieces of it will solidify, break off, they'll fall down, they'll go right into here. It's also tough to get a little bit of perspective on here, so you don't always have, like, the rocket doesn't necessarily have to be traveling like perfectly straight like this. You can, it's tough to tell in this camera angle, but it can gimbal. It can be traveling this way, but thrusting this way, or this way for that matter, but it can be thrusting in a different direction than it's traveling. So if it's thrusting this way, sometimes you could potentially get downwards thrust. Not quite that drastic, but you know, you go up like this, and you don't necessarily have to go perfectly sideways to get to orbit. Sometimes it actually may be beneficial as you get up there to thrust downward while you're traveling this way. So while you're doing that, you can get pieces that break off of the engine, you know, the vent port here, and get caught on the engine because it's traveling this way but thrusting this way. Does that make sense? Am I doing that justice? But yeah, so that's all that is. And we call that the Space Mouse because on the Demo 2 mission, it's the first time for a lot of people watching it, especially a lot of conspiracy theorists, and they all said that it was proof that the mission was fake. Look, there's a mouse right there. They can't even get their production right. There's a mouse on the engine. It's just it's solidified oxygen. It's the most consistent and well-trained mouse in spaceflight because it shows up on every mission. But the conspiracy theorists will tell you that is proof that this is all fake and it's in a studio because look there's a mouse. It's also scale-wise, these would be huge mice. Like, this engine bell is enormous. It's hard to tell in the camera view, but that is an enormous engine bell. These would be like mice the size of cats. They'd be huge mice. Anyway, so that's what the space mice thing is. There was also, oh yeah, we had a Space Caterpillar too. Space Caterpillar, where was that? That was at like, anybody remember the time on that? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's 6 minutes. That's what we call the Space Caterpillar, which is, it's going to show up briefly right there. There it is. 6:12. Oh, you can't see it because my thing's in the way. Here, let me get out of the way. Right here, 6:12, 2, 1, boom, right there. That's what we call the Space Caterpillar. I don't know why we do so many animals on this channel. It's just the theme. It's an accident. But anyways, the Space Caterpillar right there. There's a liquid oxygen vent port. Again, it comes down to liquid oxygen. There's a liquid oxygen vent port that's on the interstage here. And after that liquid oxygen vent port, oh, they just showed it right here. So right here, you can see these hoses that are just kind of dangling here right now. These hoses were connected to the second stage. And before they separate, they have to do what's called engine chill, where they flow liquid oxygen through the plumbing and through the engine to cool everything down so you don't get thermal shock when all of a sudden you're sending negative 340 degree liquid oxygen through it. So you send it through nice and slowly, let things cool down. That's called engine chill. And as they do that, it has to vent out, and it vents out these hoses here out the side. Then after separation, those hoses still have liquid oxygen in them. and there's nothing keeping them in there, or so that liquid oxygen will seep out, and it comes out that vent port. And occasionally when you see that, that's what we call the space caterpillar, because a lot of times, right there, a lot of times it comes from more in like this area, and it'll float this way, like that. And because it was liquid and it's solidifying, sometimes it can come out and it's like this, and so it looks like a caterpillar. That's a space caterpillar. So now you're up to speed on the terms. And then we've got the lobster that shows up. That's a whole nother story. But now you're in the circle with us. Okay. Let's why don't we go back? Let's start a replay while I grab some other questions, because we got lots of back it up. We got lots of time before our deployment. So our deployment, we have a second stage restart, and that restart is not until 54 minutes. So we've got like at least another 30 minutes to go before we get that restart, and then deployment starts. They're in about 12 batches, and that starts about an hour after launch. So a T plus 1 hour is when we'll see that. Can we hear the space seal in this launch? That's a good question. There's another animal on the channel. The space seal usually happens right around T minus 12 seconds. I didn't hear it this time, but let's listen carefully at T minus 12 seconds is usually where the space seal is. It's another sound. It's like the turbo pumps or valves or something opening. Gotta listen real carefully though. It's usually quiet.
T minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8,
I didn't hear it.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Those clouds.
Impulse pitching downrange.
Look at how dark those clouds are.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
We are T plus 43 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower and is currently throttling down to prepare for max Q at around the T plus 1 minute and 12 second mark. Max Q is where the
I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. What's up with you and animals? I don't know, Red. It's just I didn't ask for this, but it just keeps coming up. Let's see. I'll go over here. What was I gonna say? Oh, if you want to know, so we have links in Discord with all the animals and everything else and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested, consider joining our Discord server. It's free. There's no cost to it. You can join the Discord, hang out with us, chat it up, learn about the Overlook Horizon Zoo that we have going on, both figuratively and kind of literally, I guess. Yeah, consider joining the Discord. It's free, and there's a whole bunch of links in there. On the Hangout channel, there's a pinned message that has links to where all these terms originated from, like the first time we used all of them. So, very jerky when the fairing was released. Yeah, the camera was was shaking around like crazy. We'll have to check that when the fairing was released. I have not seen that before. That was kind of interesting. It almost seemed like the camera mount was loose or something like that.
We're about 20 seconds away from main and cut off the start.
What is the impact of emissions from the rockets on the atmosphere? How does it compare to cars, trucks, smog? The emissions from rockets are very, very small. They're not zero, but it's very, very small compared to, cars and planes and buses and things like that. It would be great to eliminate that kind of stuff, and that's, one thing that Starship will do, but it's tiny. Considering that rockets are only going, every couple of weeks.
Coming up in a few seconds, we should have the fairing deploy.
MVAC ignition.
See that fairing deployment. Look at that shake right there. Look at this. Whoa, yo, ho, 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 ho.
And there you can see the two fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 143 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. And as a reminder, our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today from the water.
To move that down here. I want to back that up and look at that shake there. That was kind of, that was new.
143 space halves.
Right here. Look at how much shake there is. I don't know why that's...
Bearing separation confirmed.
Look at this. Look at it. It's shaking like crazy.
And there you can see the two fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 100 fairing halves. And there you can see the two fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 143 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. And as a reminder, our recovery...
one more time.
Separation confirmed.
And there you can see the two fairing halves have separated and fallen away from the vehicle, exposing the 143 spacecraft to the vacuum of space. And as a reminder, our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today from the water.
Now, here's the thing I would say about the shakiness, right? So the shakiness is not completely unexpected, right? So I would expect that the payload and the camera and everything would actually shake. Like that's not unusual to me that it's going to shake. Like there is vibration that goes on. But the reason we don't see any vibration here is because the camera and the engine are vibrating together, and so like you're not really seeing any of that vibration. The interesting thing on that the payload view was it seemed like the either the camera or the payload was shaking more than the other one. My guess is on the camera, but you know the camera was doing this while the payload was maybe just shaking a little bit. But yeah, that was interesting. We haven't really seen that too much. But maybe it was too nervous. Yeah, that's probably it. That's probably it. It's because of the space lobster. Really, it gets them nervous.
Space lobster ate the T-Tab. That's the answer.
That's the answer. Camera needs to be tightened. Yeah, that is kind of my guess, is that the camera maybe was just a little bit loose. How do I find you on Discord? You type !Discord in the YouTube chat, and our friendly Nightbot will give you a link to join Discord, and it's free. Let's see.
Joining us, this is the Transporter-1 mission for SpaceX, the first dedicated smallsat rideshare program mission, and it's also the third mission of 2021. We're just waiting on the next major event for this mission, which is the first...
SpaceX hasn't attempted to catch the fairing halves in a while. Do you think they've given up? I don't think they've given up. I think they were doing some upgrades, but they haven't done it in a while. I'm not sure. I still don't think they've given up, but I think it'll be back.
You can see some periodic...
They did recently go for half a fairing catch, and that was just maybe like 2 missions ago. What mission was that? Maybe that might have been on Turksat. Not sure. I can't remember exactly, but they did recently try to catch half of it. Can you explain what happened at time T+3 with the half of the fairing? T+3 minutes?
Aerodynamic.
This, like the shaking? We just talked about that. I think the camera is, I think the mount for the camera is loose. And you can see the fairing falling away here. That's normal. That happens all the time. But the shakiness is just, I think the camera was just loose. Needed to be tightened down a little more. When will it land? It already landed. You missed it. This is a replay now.
We're at T+3 minutes and 30 seconds into flight. We have a couple of views.
Let's see.
Right now. On the right-hand side is a view of the second stage, specifically the MVAC engine. It's currently in the first.
Can they make the second stage reusable in any way? They considered it, but they have abandoned that in favor of Starship development. So they're not going to They're not going to work on any sort of recovery for stage 2 for Falcon 9. It's a hard problem to get. Remember, stage 2 is traveling really, really fast. You would need to add like either heat shielding or upgrade the thermal tolerance of the components. You'd have to add fuel so that you could do an entry burn, and if you're adding fuel, then you need fuel to carry that fuel, and it's a tough problem. So they just decided that they're gonna abandon second stage recovery on Falcon 9, and they're gonna focus on Starship, which will be fully reusable. So that's the idea. I mean, Starship was designed to be reusable from the beginning. Falcon 9 was designed to be reusable for the first stage. Second stage was never designed to be reusable, so they would have to like retrofit to change the design to make it reusable, and it turns out that's really difficult to do. So, can we see the second stage land? Second stage doesn't land. The first stage will land, and we will see that in just a minute. You'll see it in a replay here. Has the fairing always come back to Earth? Yes. Yes. I mean, generally, like other rocket companies' fairings come back, and they usually just hard crash into the ocean. Some might burn up in the atmosphere, but a lot of those fairings can survive re-entry, and then they just crash into the ocean. Could they enclose the rocket in an insulation case until just before liftoff to maintain the super chilled status for any possible delays and do away with the issue of boil off? But yeah, I guess potentially, but then you're like, that would be a difficult. I think that would be a difficult thing to manage, trying to enclose it in insulation and then somehow remove the insulation prior to launch. I mean, that could be possible. It's just the question then becomes like, is it really necessary? Like for us watching, it gets frustrating when you see a delay, an instantaneous launch window have to get scrubbed to the next day. But for SpaceX and for your customers, like if you've been developing a satellite for 3 years and they're like, hey, you know what? You need to wait 1 more day for launch. They're like, okay, like what? It's not a big deal. So that's, I think it's just, you might be able to do some sort of complicated insulation system that ejected or deployed or removed itself before launch to try to keep it cool. But just adds complexity that's just not, it's not needed. You're doing it just to be more convenient to the audience that's watching at home, which, hate to break it to everybody, like, we're not that important to them.
We are about 45 seconds away from that stage 1 entry burn. For the entry burn, it is a 3-engine burn, so 3 of the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will relight and start to slow the stage.
Why aren't there more explosions in real rocketry like in Kerbal? It's disappointing. Well, see, real explosions are much more disappointing because that means the whole space program goes on halt until they figure out why it exploded. So, what happens to the rest of the rocket? Does it ever come down? The second stage after deployment will flip around and it's going to deorbit and break up in the atmosphere. It's going to deorbitate. So they're good space citizens. Once they deploy the satellites, second stage will come back and burn up in the atmosphere. It's going to deorbitate. Has the fairing already come back to Earth? Not yet. It's on its way back. It takes like 40 minutes for the fairing to come back.
And there's the entry burn. 3 of the 9 Merlin engines have relit. This burn is...
SpaceX is showing the booster recovery ship live. Oh, is it live? Let me see. No, I don't see it. What are you talking about? Just as we were about to have landing. Oh, what is this? Lim is right. What is this view? We've not seen this before. Go back to that. That's interesting. We've never seen that before. Here, look at this. That's a view of the drone ship live. Huh. That's kind of cool. Why don't they show us that when it's actually landing? That would be really awesome. But nothing, I can't turn the volume up because they're just playing music that I don't have rights to, but that's kind of cool, right? Look at that view. Interesting. Just kind of hanging out there. I'm wondering how close they are to get that view. How big of the camera are they? Because usually, now I got to go to. Now I'm going to pull up marine traffic. Usually, they go pretty far away, like a couple miles away from it. Let me see. I'm going to try to pull it up. Is this our... It is interesting that it's this close. What is this guy? This is... Oh, that's a drill ship. That's not our drone ship there. Out of coastal range, unspecified ship. So yeah. I was trying to see if I could find it. So what I'm looking at, there we go. All right, I was just waiting for them to switch out. This is what I was looking at here. This is marine traffic. The marine traffic map, and I think right in this region is our drone ship, and that's the tug for the drone ship. It's tough to tell because these are satellite positions, and they don't show me the name of the vessel when it's in this mode. So I think this is it, but I'm not sure. That would be, but usually they're like miles away. Not sure what's going on there. That's kind of cool though. We've never seen that view before. All right, let's back up here and just we cut off like right before we were about to see the landing. So we'll watch the landing again. Could they have people on the drone ship, like in a bunker or something, to anchor it down? No, generally there's no people on board. The drone ship has its own, that's why it's an autonomous drone ship, because it has its own station-keeping thrusters to keep it in one spot. Then the support personnel get off the drone ship and go on the support ships, waiting for the actual landing.
And there's the entry burn 3 of the 9.
Why does it take more time for the fairing? Fairing is really big. It slows down really quickly, has a huge surface area. It slows down really quickly, and then it comes down under parachute.
Second stage and terminal.
I guess it's a security boat that's up close this time, since it's so close to Cuba. Maybe.
And you can see on screen the entry burn has concluded, and in just
we don't have anybody in the area other than according to the marine traffic, other than the tug. So how does it get back to Canaveral? They use the tug, and they pull the drone ship with the tug, and they pull it back to Canaveral. Is there enough fuel on board the booster for an explosion now? Yes and no. So generally, at this point in the flight, once it lands, like there's very, very little fuel left, like almost nothing. So there's not a ton of fuel left. You can still get a little bit of a fireball, but the bigger concern really is that those tanks are still fully pressurized. So if it were to tip over and collapse and rupture, like it's gonna explode, not from fire, but from pressure, and the pressure will just rip it apart. That's a big concern. That's why they have to depressurize all the tanks and vent them, and to get them safe before anybody gets near it.
Confirmation of the second stage that it did reach a
Here's
good
our landing
orbit.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
LOS stage 2, Cape Canaveral expected.
Look at this. Almost clean video. It kind of pixelates a bit, but there we go. Right down to
And
landing.
Falcon 9
Right on the money.
returns safely once again. That is the 5th time for this particular booster and the 73rd recovery of an orbital class rocket. Great way to start off the mission and a great way to start off the Sunday.
All right, so we'll turn that back down here. And I guess we'll do another, what are we at time-wise? 40 minutes, so we still got another 13, 14 minutes before our second stage restart. So we might as well, we'll keep the replay going here while we grab a couple of other questions. Michael's looking on Vessel Finder for the drone ship. The drone ship doesn't actually have its own transmitter, as far as I'm aware. So it's usually the tug or the support ships that you have to locate, other than the drone. The drone ship you usually can't locate on vessel maps. Do they depressurize at sea? Yes. Yeah, they'll depressurize and safe the vehicle, and the crew will go on board. Usually you get the octograbber that goes out and grabs onto it to also safe it, and the crew can go on board and do anything that they need to do. But yeah, they do that all while it's still at sea.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Impulse pitching downrange.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
We are T plus 43 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower and is currently throttling down to prepare for max Q at around the T plus 1 minute and 12 second mark. Max Q is where the vehicle will experience the...
All right, we'll turn that down a little bit while we grab a couple other questions. Has SpaceX ever engaged the flight termination system? Not on a real mission, as far as I'm aware. I mean, they've only had... we had the CRS-7 failure. I don't think that used flight termination at all. And, they did the Grasshopper flight like a long time ago, years and years ago when they were developing the Falcon 9, had to use the flight termination system. But I don't think there's been anything else that's used the flight termination system.
That's where the 9 engines on the first stage will shut off, followed by stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from one another. Shortly after that...
Do you have both SpaceX toys that went to space? I think you're talking about... Well, they're behind... I can't get to them right now, but I do have... I have the Earthy Space Kirby. I have the Tremor, the dinosaur, and I have the child, Baby Yoda, Grogu. I have them all. Is there a mission plan for Falcon Heavy? Yes, we've got a couple Falcon Heavies. There are 3 Falcon Heavies scheduled for 2021. At least one is coming up in just a couple of months. So I think it's May is the next Falcon Heavy flight that we'll see. So Falcon Heavy will be the USS F-44 missions is currently scheduled for May 2021. Then there's another one scheduled for July and another one scheduled for October. So we have 3 Falcon Heavy missions scheduled for this year. SN9, the Starship SN9, it's looking like potentially Monday, like tomorrow, we might have a Starship flight. So keep an eye out. This is why you should join our Discord, because we'll talk about this. We'll keep you up to date. But yeah, it's looking like maybe tomorrow. Still seems like that would be quick, but it sounds like they're happy with the static fire, and it might be tomorrow. So consider joining Discord, and you can stay up to date on when SN9 will fly. Back during the shuttle program, a bird hit the booster and fell down into the thrust and fried. Yeah, I think I don't think it hit the booster. It hit the external fuel tank, right? They just plowed through a bird with the external fuel tank. Yep, I do recall that. Do you have any high-altitude balloon launches planned for this summer? Yeah, a lot of it depends on what's happening with the pandemic and stuff. So, yeah, potentially. It's looking like we might be able to do something, but it's hard to plan that far in advance these days.
This burn should last for about another 5 minutes or so.
Do you think one day we'll see the Octograbber do its grabby thing live? Maybe, I don't know. They haven't been too keen on showing us the live operations, so I would love to see it, but I don't know. I'm not expecting to see it. Somebody asked about the sonic booms. I don't remember who it was. Oh, there you go. Sparky 100. What altitude and speed is a sonic boom, and can it be heard across Florida? So, generally, sonic booms generally propagate in the direction that you're traveling. So it's like a wave that comes out, it's a pressure wave. All that, you've got a vehicle traveling, you got all that pressure that's building up in front of it, and the sonic boom is all those pressure waves catching up to you in the direction of travel. And I mean, it can bounce around and do things like that, but generally it's going to propagate in the direction of travel. So as the vehicle's going up, you don't really hear sonic booms. As it's coming back and it goes transonic, then that's when you hear them, but usually you're only going to hear it if it's an RTLS landing, because it's coming back towards you, back towards land. That's when you would hear those sonic booms. I don't know if somebody in like Cuba might have heard them. I didn't actually measure what the distance was, how far off from the coast it is, but it seems like it's kind of far off for anybody to hear it today. So I don't expect anybody, other than the crew that's out, the support crew that's out with the drone ship, I don't expect anybody's going to hear the sonic booms today. Will Rocket Lab catch one of the stages with the helicopters anytime soon? They said they want to start doing that by the end of the year, so I think we're still a couple months off. I think they're going to do a couple of recovery tests, soft land it in the water maybe, and they said before the year is out, they want to actually try to recover one.
Closer to the Earth, you'll start to notice those honeycomb-like structures on the left-hand side of the screen start to move and pivot. Those are our hypersonic grid fins, and those help to steer the first stage back as it returns back to Earth. As for the second stage, impact performance looks nominal.
All right, and I just realized I missed, there were a couple other super chats that I missed here. So I saw Cheryl Johnson became a member. Thanks, Cheryl. Photographer Luke sent another super sticker. Little dude flying. I really got to figure out a way to show those, because those are sometimes they're pretty funny. Anyways, Lim, I saw Lim's where he said they're showing the booster recovery ship live. Thanks for that, Lim. And Mike Awesome sent another. I think you're the one that sends me this every time, Mike. He said, "Happy not birthday." In Space Lobster we trust. He tells me happy not birthday every time. Well, thank you, Mike. Still not my birthday. I think he's just going to send super chats until one of these days I'll be like, "You're right, it's my birthday." Not my birthday.
We are about 45 seconds away from that stage 1 entry burn. For the entry burn, it is a 3-engine burn, so 3 of the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will relight and start to slow the stage down before it hits the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
All right, after this landing here, did we get... Let me jump over to here. Did my... Yeah, it might... how much time do we have? Let's see. Where are we at time-wise? 49 minutes? Oh, we might not have a ton of time. SpaceX is going to be coming back in about 5 minutes here.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's the entry burn. 3 of the 9 Merlin engines have relit. This burn is expected to last for about 30 seconds.
The King Tom says, why doesn't Rocket Lab catch their boosters like SpaceX fairings? Oh, at first I thought you said SpaceX boosters.
Second stage internal guidance.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
I think it would be a lot harder to catch a booster
You
in the
can see on
net.
screen, the entry burn has concluded, and in just a few seconds, we should be hearing the call out for a second engine cutoff, where we'll shut down the second stage MVAC engine.
So the booster coming back is a lot more aerodynamic. It can punch through the atmosphere much easier, comes back a lot faster. Remember the Falcon Heavy center core didn't ignite the engine and it just plowed through and hit the water at something like 400 miles per hour or something like that. You're gonna have a hard time catching that booster. Now potentially, I guess you could say, all right, use the same parachute system just like they're doing now and put some sort of net underneath it. But again, the booster's kind of big, and SpaceX hasn't really proven that to be a super successful method yet. They've done it a couple of times, but not consistently. And I think Rocket Lab is thinking that they'll be able to do the helicopter catch much more consistently without having to worry about getting a ship underneath it. I think United Launch Alliance is planning something similar, right? With their Vulcan rocket, they're going to try to do like a helicopter catch too. But yeah, I think it's just for simplicity's sake. Like the fairing catch is pretty cool, but here's our booster landing again.
And Falcon 9 returns safely once again. That is the 5th time for this particular booster and the 73rd recovery of an orbital class rocket. Great way to start off the mission and a great way to start off the Sunday. We're now going
all right, so
for the next 45 minutes or so while we wait for
keep this up. So they should be back here. Oh, we should probably switch back to live. Where's my switch back to live? It's probably gonna mess with my countdown, my clock. Let me fix the clock real quick so I can match up with theirs. We're only what, like 3 seconds off or so. There we go. Now we're all matched up again. So they should be coming back here soon. We should have had... We weren't live. I don't know. I don't think they showed it, but maybe they showed it. The fairing recovery should have happened already. Or at least the landing, not necessarily the recovery. Because they're going to pluck it out of the water. They're probably not going to show it to us because they're not doing a catch today. And they're just going to pull it out of the water. So... don't expect to see much on the fairing, but they should have landed by this point. Let's see. How are you supposed to catch a booster with a helicopter? So the parachute... Let me see if I can show it to you. They've actually done it. They've done it already, where they've dropped it. They've dropped a booster from they've dropped it from a helicopter and caught it with another helicopter. So they've actually done this. Let's see, return. No, not that. Let me see. I've got it here somewhere. I'll show it to you. Get rid of the replay text if I can find it quickly. Oh, SpaceX is back. Let's listen into them.
Time and successfully completed our first second stage burn. On screen right now is a view of the second stage MVAC engine. We are waiting to relight that engine for the second and final burn. This burn will be a quick one, lasting only 2 seconds.
Quick,
and
2
we're
second
expecting
burn.
that burn to start in just a few seconds here. And if we don't have footage of it, we should be able to get confirmation over the nets. And there
we go. I missed it.
Second engine startup, and then
there you go.
Cut
There's
off.
liquid oxygen right there. That freaks people out all the time.
Now we're waiting for confirmation of a good orbit on that second stage.
Nominal payload orbit insertion.
And there's the call out that we want. That is a confirmation of a good orbit. Next up will be the deployment of our 133 spacecraft on board the mission, which will occur over an 18-minute period. And as a reminder, today's mission is the first dedicated smallsat rideshare program mission. We created this program to provide small satellite operators with regularly scheduled rides on board Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and in the not-too-distant future, Starship as well. These missions offer competitive pricing to our customers, as well as increased flight opportunities and flexibility. As part of this program, we're also offering traditional rideshare opportunities on existing low Earth orbit missions and on SpaceX's Starlink missions, which provide launch opportunities about once a month.
Getting a little sales pitch in.
The first of those deployments should be happening around the T plus 58-minute and 30-second mark. There's a view of the Transporter-1 payload containing all 143 spacecraft.
So we're about a minute and a half away, maybe 2 minutes away from
For today's ride shares,
first
there are
deployment.
11 ports on our payload adapter responsible for sending 133 spacecraft plus our 10 Starlink satellites into orbit. Some of these ports will have multiple deployments. For these, over the countdown nets, we'll hear callouts for when the deployment sequence has begun and another callout for when the deployment sequence has completed. There are also then a handful of ports that will deploy only once, and we'll try to let you know who the customer is for each deployment, along with how many spacecraft are being sent into space.
So the first one up is going to be Planet Labs? Planet. The Super Doves. 36 Super Doves, which I believe have launched on
Just over a minute away from the first set of deployments.
Here's some existing
Due to the nature
Planet
of the
Labs,
payload stack,
or Planet.
we will not have
Is it
visuals
Planet
for
Labs?
every deployment, but we do hope to catch most of them with our 2-camera views. It's also worth noting that we will lose access to ground station coverage for a short period during the 18-minute deployment sequence, and when we reach that point, we'll let you know over the webcast.
You can see that liquid oxygen solidifying and building up on that vent port right there. Let's see. So the first Super Doves, I think, have launched on
First
Electron
up, the
rockets
deployment
too with Rocket
sequences
Lab.
for port C4 and C1 will be initiated at the T plus 58-minute and 30-second mark. On port C4, there are 36 Planet Super Doves, and then there are 17 spacecraft aboard Kepler's port on port C1.
Space flower. Yeah, that did kind of look like a flower. The solidified oxygen there. So we're coming up on that first deployment here. We're just seconds away. See if we can see it.
And we're hoping to get
this
Ports C4 and C1 deployment sequences initiated.
deployment sequence
those callouts.
initiated.
The deployment sequence has started for 36 of Planet's Super Doves on port C4, as well as the 17 spacecraft aboard
See
Kepler's
nothing.
port on C1. We're expecting these deployments to conclude about 11 minutes from now. In just a few seconds, we should be starting up the deployment for our customer Maverick, which contains 3 CubeSats for NASA's Small Spacecraft Technology Program's VR3X mission. It's going to be deploying from the aft end fuel dome, which essentially is a small platform mounted on the back end of the second stage fuel dome, right above the MVAC engine.
Aft end payload deployed.
And there you heard the callouts. 3 CubeSats aboard Maverick's Mercury dispenser have deployed. These are for NASA's
Oh,
Small
think I saw
Spacecraft
something.
Technologies Program VR3X mission. The next call out will be to start deployment sequence for our customer NanoRacks around the T plus 1 hour and 8-minute mark. And while we wait for this deployment sequence to begin, we're going to leave you with views of the deployments for Planet and Kepler. And we'll see you back here at the T plus 1 hour and 7-minute mark.
All right, so they're going to take a quick break. They got some music playing. We'll turn them down for a bit. We got about 8 minutes until the next the next deployment here. So we've got, that was the first 3 groups, just like that. Bang, bang, boom. They're out. So we did the first 3 deployments. There were 36. Let me make sure I can pull this up and get this right. We had the first one were the 36 Super Dove satellites for Planet. Then we had 17 spacecraft aboard the Kepler's port begin deployment. Then we also had NASA's VR3X mission and 3 CubeSats aboard Maverick's Mercury dispenser. Or actually, that might have been the same thing. NASA's VR3X mission, which is 3 CubeSats aboard Maverick's Mercury dispenser. So all 3 of those happened like just within seconds of each other. They got all of those deployed and off the spacecraft. Remember, we're doing 143 satellites today. 143, and we're already, I don't know, what are we at? Like 50 something here now? 56. So we've deployed 56 of the 143 already. Now we've got NanoRacks, which has 9 payloads, 9 satellites. We have ExoPort-2, which has 28. Then we'll be up to Capella 3, ExoPort-1. So we've got a bunch coming on, and these are going to deploy between now, which is 1 hour. We're at 1 hour and 1 minute into the flight, and the final deployment, which is Starlink, is 1 hour and 31 minutes into flight. So we're getting closer. Hundred 143 satellites. I hope some of them have 4K VR cameras on them for awesome live feeds. I don't expect that. It's a big wish list item for anybody watching spaceflight stuff. Everybody wants to see the deployments. They want to see views of space and things like that. But just the cost to invest into live views for us, the audience, is just not. Nobody wants to pay for that. That's the problem. Why doesn't SpaceX show the stage 1 telemetry? They used to show it, and they've showed it a couple times in the past, but I don't know, to be honest, why they don't show us the stage 1 telemetry. I mean, they have showed it in the past. It could be, maybe they consider it proprietary. Maybe they're just like, we don't have enough. It could be as simple as like, we don't have enough room on the display, so we're just not going to show it to you. But yeah, they don't usually show, these days, they don't show stage 1 telemetry very often. Let's see what else we had. I'm just checking to see if there were any updates here. Okay, we're good. What is it? Can you explain what we're looking at right now? So the view that we're looking at is from the interstage. So from the top of the rocket, we're looking out this way. So, you know, the rocket would be in, like, I guess it would be this orientation, would be the rocket here. Obviously, it's going to be bigger than this, but it's going to be in this orientation compared to the view that we're looking at. So we're looking out the front. The camera is here looking out the top of the payload. So the Starlink satellites, which are these satellites right here, those are the closest to the payload adapter. And then there's a big long post, which is out here. There's another payload adapter, and then you'll see some satellites here, 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 up there. They go all around there. So we're only looking at one side of this, really. But yeah, it's the second stage is facing this way. We're seeing a camera that's right here pointing that way. That's what we're looking at right now. What was that at the top left? About a minute. I think we saw, well, one. I think this could be the moon here that we're seeing right there. And I think they also had, I think we saw at least one payload I thought I saw deployed. Do they recover stage 2 as well? No, stage 2 is going to deorbit. It's going to deorbitate. And it will come back and break up in the atmosphere. So they don't They don't recover that,
It's gonna deorbitate.
but it will deorbitate, otherwise known as deorbit. Well, we're about 3 minutes away from the next deployment now. Too small to be the moon. That's pretty typical for what we see on camera. Remember, it is really difficult. Anybody that's a photographer knows that it is really difficult to photograph the moon, because the moon actually can be, especially if you've ever tried to, if you look at the moon, especially when it's close to the horizon and you're seeing the moon rise and you look at it and you're like, oh wow, the moon looks huge, it's enormous, I gotta take a picture of this, and you get your phone out and you take a picture and you're like, well, that's not what it looks like. It looks way bigger in person than it looks on my phone. You're actually seeing an optical illusion. So the moon is actually pretty small, and especially when you get in a camera angle like this, which is likely a wide angle lens. And I don't know if that's the moon, to be honest. It's too fuzzy to be able to tell, but I think it might be the moon. But anyways, so when you get in a wide angle lens like what we're seeing here right now, it's going to look even smaller because you've got so much of the picture being shown with this wide angle lens that it's just going to make your moon look even smaller. If you're ever taking a photo and you want your moon to look bigger, you have to use a really long telephoto lens and try to position the moon next to an object in the distance, like a house or something like that, and that's how you can make the moon look bigger in photos. But it's really difficult to do.
Dedicated smallsat rideshare program mission. On board this mission are 143 spacecraft, the most spacecraft ever deployed on a single mission. If you're just joining us, Falcon 9 had an on-time liftoff at 10 a.m. Eastern from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. It followed a nominal trajectory after liftoff. The first stage landed for the 5th time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, and our second stage had 2 successful engine burns. So far, the deployment sequence has begun for 36 of Planet's CubeSats, as well as the 17 spacecraft aboard Kepler's port. If you're looking closely at the left half of your screen, you should see them in the background being deployed from the payload. We're expecting those to be completed around the T+1 hour and 9 minute mark. We've also deployed 3 CubeSats for our customer Maverick. We're now waiting to hear that the deployment sequence has started from port C3 for the 9 spacecraft for NanoRacks EAR-1 mission.
All right, here we go. Coming up on the NanoRacks deployment here now. See if we see anything.
And while we're waiting for that call out, the white dot on the left-hand side of the screen, that is the moon. It's pretty cool shots of the moon there.
See, he said it was the moon right there.
And
I
there
told
goes
you.
another
You guys didn't want to
satellite.
believe
Again,
me.
we're waiting for confirmation from
me?
the team for the 9 spacecraft for NanoRacks
Deployment sequence initiated.
EAR-1 mission.
There we go. Ah.
And there's the confirmation for the 9 spacecraft. We're expecting to get confirmation that these have completed deployment in about 8 minutes from now once we pass through our ground station blackout period, so stay tuned for that.
Also signal Bangalore as expected.
Next up, we're expecting to get the confirmation that the 36 of Planet's Super Doves have deployed, as well as the 17 spacecraft aboard Kepler's port.
There we go.
And we did get that call out. So far, we've successfully deployed 56 of our 133 smallsat rideshares today. 9 spacecrafts have started their deployment sequence and should wrap up in the next few minutes, leaving another 68 still yet to be initiated. We've now entered that blackout period I mentioned earlier, which means we lose camera views and telemetry. During this time, we are expecting quite a bit of activity, but we won't get confirmation of successful deployments until we regain ground station connectivity around the T+1 hour and 15 minute mark. Here's a preview of what will be happening until we regain that connectivity. 9 spacecraft for NanoRacks will complete their deployment sequence. The first of 2 ports for our customer ExoLaunch will start and then finish deploying from port B3. Their second port, B2, will also begin its deploy sequence, but won't be completed until approximately T+1 hour and 16 minutes. ExoLaunch has a total of 30 spacecraft on today's mission. From there, 2 spacecraft will deploy for our customer Capella from 2 separate ports. And lastly, Spaceflight Incorporated customer IQPS's satellite will also separate. And while we wait to regain access to ground station coverage in a few minutes, sit back and follow along with our animation that shows you where we're at in the mission. We'll see you back here at the T+1 hour and 15-minute mark.
All right, so our next deployment here is about 5 minutes away. I do want to show, I'm not going to show it right now because I don't want to mess up our clock. Somebody had commented about how our clock is lagging a little bit. Listen, I get it as close as I can. This one is my clock, and then obviously they have their clock. Like, I can only sync it, like, I could sit here forever trying to sync it up as perfectly as I can. I just have to guess at the time, and like, you know, I'm trying to get like decimal places down the best that I can, but that's why you see a little bit of a lag. It usually means that I'm off by like a decimal somewhere. I mean, I could try to sync it up, but somebody was complaining that my clock was ticking ahead too fast. And you know, the real trouble is like, even if I update it, like, so I just updated it just to show you how difficult this is to line up these clocks here. My clock was ticking ahead. Let's see. So it is. Yeah. So I just updated it by like 1/10 of a second, and I think I'm even further off than I was before. So, you know, even trying to get this to sync up is not the easiest task. See, now we're like a whole second behind. We're gonna go the other way, maybe? No. See, this is really difficult, like, because it's all browser based, and like I can have in my preview where it's like perfectly lined up, but by the time it gets to OBS, there you go. That's as close as I'm gonna get. That's as close as I'm gonna get. So by the time it gets to OBS, like I have my timeline program, which is a custom program that I wrote, and then by the time it gets to OBS, there's a little bit of a lag there. So like trying to match up those times is really difficult. But if you have a better way, let me know in Discord. Oh, hey, there we go. Well, they don't have any. They're just playing music, so they're not talking any. But look at that, they've already picked up the fairings. That's a pretty cool view. I'm actually really impressed at how quickly they've picked those up out of the water. I thought that was going to be a longer operation, but look at that. And then you can see, you can see the people down here for scale. Banana for scale. People for scale. That was a pretty cool view. All right. Well, sorry. So I wanted to jump on that real quick. So we're waiting now. What are we waiting on? We're waiting for about 1 hour, 15 minutes. I think it's the next deployment. Where is the recovery? So the recovery would be, where's our hazard map? Here's our hazards map. The recovery ship is out here. So here's the drone ship, which is the blue. Here's the fairing recovery ships, which is the green pin. So they're out this way. So we launched from Cape Canaveral, Slick 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, heading down this way. And the booster landed out here on the blue pin. And the fairings are out here on the green pin. So that's where they're located right now. That's what we just saw right there. So when SpaceX flies over Russia, there aren't any ground stations. Yeah, not sure why I mean, I don't know what their coverage area is for signal reception. So, I mean, they use a lot of like the TDRS constellation for communication. So they could be in between satellites there. They may not have any ground stations, especially over Russia. Russia and SpaceX are not super close friends. Well, they might fly on a Crew Dragon. And I would also say, like, they do prioritize generally, like, telemetry over video feeds, but I think the loss of signal here is not really a factor for either. Like, I think they've lost signal on all the stuff.
Deploying 133 smallsats for commercial and government customers. We're expecting to reconnect with the ground station in just a few seconds, and we should be hearing callouts for the deployments that we didn't see, and these callouts should be happening back-to-back once we reconnect. During this blackout period, we also were able to recover both fairing halves, and they are safely on board our ships. And the callouts for the satellites should be happening around the T+1 hour and 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 50-second mark.
Yeah, a couple people talking about them using Starlink for their communication. That would be even more difficult to use Starlink, because remember, your second stage is traveling just as fast as the Starlink satellites are.
Acquisition of signal, Cordova.
So you don't have Starlink satellites passing overhead, really. Like you're almost just following along with them. You'd have to have a dedicated Starlink satellite following with you. And in addition to that, they're almost in the same orbit.
Deployments confirmed on ports C3, B3, C5, B1, and C6. Port B2 deployment sequence initiated and confirmed.
I don't see anything.
So we did get some confirmations. We should have some more callouts happening in just a few seconds here, and I'll summarize once all of the callouts are done.
Oh, there's one right there. I saw that one heading out. Nope, there's another one.
Port A4 deployment confirmed. Port A2 deployment confirmed.
So that...
Port B2 deployment sequence complete.
I was going to say, that should be the end of this batch of deployments, which is basically everything except for Starlink. Starlink is going to be the last one. We got about another 10 minutes, a little more than 10 minutes to go for Starlink. Tell the guys at SpaceX to turn on the lights.
It sounds like we've gotten all the callouts. I'm going to go ahead and recap all the different ports. So from port C3, the NanoRacks EAR-1 mission's 9 payloads have deployed. From port B3 and B2, the ExoPort-1 spacecraft deployed with 2 ICE-I radar imaging satellites aboard, and ExoPort-2 with 28 spacecraft from the DLR ICE-I Nanoavionics Swarm and TU Dresden began its deployment. From port C5 and C6, deployed 1 smallsat each for our customer Capella. From port B1, the Spaceflight Incorporated customer's IQPS satellite has also deployed. And from port A4, SpaceX Spaceflight Incorporated's Sherpa FX-1 spacecraft has deployed with its 13 spacecraft on board. From port B2, the final smallsats for EXO launch have now deployed, making for a total of 30 on today's mission. And from port A2, D-Orbit's Pulse mission with its 20 spacecraft on board has also deployed. And that will conclude the rideshare portion of the mission. With these deployments behind us, we are now going to enter another short coast phase before deploying our 10 Starlink satellites. So sit tight, enjoy the music, and we'll be back at the T+1 hour and 30-minute mark. We'll see you then.
All right, so now we're down to about 12 minutes until Starlink deploys. So that's what's left. All of the paying customers have been deployed successfully, which is great news. So they're in good shape. Those deployments all use like a spring pusher system. What's going to be interesting to me, and I couldn't figure this out beforehand, is how the Starlink deployment is going to work with the fact that it has that payload adapter on top of it. I'm not sure how this is going to work. So normally, a Starlink deployment looks something like this, where they have all the Starlink satellites stacked on top of each other. They spin the rocket like this, and then they just let them go and they fling them off the end, right? So there's the satellites we saw just recently all had spring pushers. when they deploy, there's a little spring that just goes, get away from me. See ya. But Starlink doesn't normally have those. Normally they just let them go, and away it goes. So you get this where it spreads out, they spread out just because of the difference in speed. That's why they do that spinning motion, is to get that difference in speed. The satellites on the outside are spinning slightly fast, or traveling slightly faster than the satellites on the inside of that circle, because they are covering more distance in the same amount of time that the satellites that are closer to the rocket are going. So, right? So if you've got it spinning like this, and you follow your payload and you draw a circle where your payload is spinning, your circle would be smaller for the satellites on the inside than the satellites on the outside, which would have a bigger circle. But they're covering the same amount of distance, or covering more distance in the same amount of time with the ones on the inside. So they're traveling slightly faster, and that's what causes them to spread out. The question that I have that I don't really know the answer to is how this is going to work, because now you have the big payload adapter that's on top of the Starlink satellites. So I don't know how this works. So I'm not sure how that's gonna how they're gonna get these Starlink satellites off, but we'll find out together. I'll just let this play one more time so you can see it. Will they do an axial spin to accomplish the same thing? I'm expecting them to still do the spin, because I don't expect there to be any spring pushers for the Starlink satellites. I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to get past the big payload adapter that's on top. Like, are they going to just deploy that and like turn that into junk? I don't know what they're going to do with that. So, SN9 may fly tomorrow. Yes, that's correct. We might see Starship fly tomorrow. Are you going to be a Starlink customer? For me, Starlink probably doesn't make sense, because I have pretty good internet service right where I am. It's not great. I wish I could get better. I wish I could get fiber optics, but Starlink right now is serving like maybe 100 to 120 megabits per second download speed. I currently have 400 megabits per second. That's the best that I can get where I am right now. But Starlink is serving about 120 megabits per second. So my internet service is better right now without Starlink. But where Starlink will, so I probably won't necessarily be a Starlink customer. I would love to try it out just to have fun. And I could see using Starlink for maybe our weather balloon flights when I go on a chase and I have to try to track those things down in the middle of nowhere where there's no coverage. Like, that would be cool to have a service like Starlink that could be mobile, that I could take in my vehicle with me and get 100 megabit per second service. Like, that would be kind of cool. But at least not here in the studio. I probably wouldn't be a huge use for me. But just down the road for me, like 5 minutes down the road, there's terrible internet service. Like, it's just DSL service. I think 20 megabits per second is the best you can get, like 5 minutes down the road. And they would love to have Starlink. And I'm not that far. I'm in Rochester, New York. It's it's not like we're in the middle of nowhere. But you get out further away from the city, like way out into the rural areas. That's you're gonna have a hard time with internet service out there. So it'd be great for them. Why? We found David Leffel over on Facebook is asking about the rats running around a rocket. He's found out about the space mice. Should we tell him? Should we tell him what the deal is with the space mice? Because we already talked about this, David. We talked about it at length. But I suppose we could talk about it again. So I'll do it one more time. People get sick of me talking about this because we talk about it a million times, but and I don't want to mess up my timer. Well, we'll do it after deployment, David, if you remind me, or you could just rewind back like 10 minutes ago. We talked about this. But the space mice is just it's It's liquid oxygen. It's not mice. Remember, we already went through this. I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry, David. Somebody give David a timestamp so we can go back and talk about the space mice. Martin says, we've actually decided that they're space cats is really what they are. They're space cats, not space mice. Right, I'm with you, Martin. Let's see. Nomadic says, unfortunately, Starlink's going to be geo-locked to 5 square miles of the service address. I did see that, yeah, in these early stages, they're geo-locked. But I was pretty sure they said, or at least they alluded to, the idea of allowing mobile service sometime in the future. I think right now it has to be geo-locked because they don't really have great coverage. And so you could... You know, they couldn't reliably give you coverage once you go outside of your service address. But I think in the future they're hoping to have some sort of like mobile options. They're just not. I think they have to get way more satellites into orbit before they could do that. How about a Space Mouse video you can simply link every time somebody asks? That's a good idea, Fritz46. Just do a video about the space mice. We should do that. Then I don't have to repeat myself 100 times. We can't assume what their species is. Maybe it's just Elon's secret spies. Now you're talking. They're in cahoots with the space lobster.
Space lobster ate the T-Teb. That's the answer.
That's the answer, really. Starlink is not useful for me. I have mobile data from at 300 gigabits per month for just $12 a night. But I guess the question would be, what's your speed there, Lucas? Because that's really where Starlink is improving on people. Like, a lot of people have low-cost internet service, but they're also getting low-speed internet service. And the gigabytes per month that you're mentioning, that's a cap. That's not what we're talking about when I'm talking about 100 megabits per second. That's a bandwidth speed. So the 300 megabytes per month you're talking about is a data cap, not a speed. If you had 300 gigabytes per month, that would, I don't know what that would work out to for speed, because we don't measure speed in months, we measure it in seconds. Why was the SLS Greenfire test so short? It was a conservative limit set just for the ground test. So it sounds like the engines actually worked pretty well, but they had some conservative limits set for the ground test, which caused the engine to shut down, or the engines to shut down. Brandon's got 1,000 by 1,000 fiber at home. That just makes me jealous. Is Starlink upgradable? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, they're constantly upgrading by adding more satellites. They're performing software updates on a weekly basis to the satellites that are already in orbit. Can somebody talk to me? Hi, I'm here. I'm here for you, Eagle. Let's talk. I used to have HughesNet at the house in Canada. I was lucky if I got 10 megabits per second. Starlink's going to restore my sanity. Yeah, that's the thing. You've got, we have internet service already, or satellite internet service that's out there. It exists, but it's just so far away in geostationary orbit. The Starlink service brings those satellites closer, lowers your latency, provides you with much higher speeds. Let's see, I got a super chat from KDB. KDB says, got info on Starlink and AUS. I'm assuming that's Australia. If you want it, Tori. Sure, send it to me in Discord. Let me know what you got. Thanks for your support there, KDB. How is that going to make it faster? So, I mean, it's basically, you bring those into lower orbit and your communication time is faster from the satellite to the ground. Oh, here we go. You can see, oh, they were just showing, it looks like they've got the spin working already. So they are spinning it like we figured they would. If we jump over to here on our Starlink video, you can see the spin. right there. And now they're about to deploy.
Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida at 10 a.m. Eastern. We then had 2 successful ignitions and shutdown of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine, then successful deployment of our 133 spacecraft for our commercial and government customers. We were also able to successfully recover our first stage for a 5th time on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, and recover both fairing halves from the water. Coming up, we'll have the deployment of our 10 Starlink satellites. It's going to be the first set of Starlink satellites deployed to a polar orbit, and that should be happening in about 30 seconds.
And it's coming right back over Canada and the
U.S.
U.S.
Of the second stage. That right there is a view of the Starlink satellites to the right-hand side.
And I don't know how this is going to work, so...
It looks like we lost a signal on the second stage.
Oh, I hope they show it to us.
Hopefully we can get that back.
Right, just coming over Canada right now.
If we don't have views of the second stage, we should get confirmation via the callouts of deployments of those Starlink satellites.
Here's our deployment should be coming up now. Show us a video. I need to see this.
Partial data back from New Hampshire.
Partial data back. Oh. There it goes.
And there goes the 10 Starlink satellites, the first set to go to a polar orbit. With those 10, that is 143 spacecraft deployed on a single mission, the most ever. Pretty awesome. With that said, that will be bringing our webcast to an end. We would like to thank all of our rideshare customers for their support on today's mission. We'd also like to thank the United States Air Force for range support, as well as the Federal Aviation Administration for licensing. Continue to follow us on SpaceX.com for future missions and milestones, as well as our Twitter and Instagram profiles. And if you are excited about what you've seen today and want to join our team, visit SpaceX.com/careers to learn more about working at SpaceX. Thank you to all of our viewers for your continued support, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
All right, well, there it is. They've finished their deployment. Looks like they got all of them out. We didn't really get to see too much on the Starlink side of things. Here, I'm going to back it up just a little bit. We'll throw the replay text up. That we did see right before deployment. We saw the spinning action, which was maybe back here a little bit. And I wanted to see what we had for... Yeah, so you still have this payload adapter that's up on top. I don't understand what happens to the payload adapter. Somebody explain this to me. Because you've got that giant payload adapter up on top. And then we never really got to see... We didn't get a great view of deployment. Actually, this doesn't even look like it's spinning yet. Here, there we go. Came through here, we did all this, blah, blah, blah. Keep going. Keep going, keep going. At some point, they showed it to us. Here we go. See, you still got that clear view. There we go. Now you can see it. You can see it doing the spin right there. I don't understand what happens to this thing. Where does that go? So doing the spin, and then of course we lost it. And then fast forward to the little bit of deployment video that we got. I mean, it just seems like it deploys with the satellites, but it just seems confusing to me. All right, well, I guess that's the best we got. That's all we've got. So everything was sent into a normal spin, then the entire Starlink payload and payload adapter were released. The payload adapter detaches and deorbits. All right, I guess I can buy that. They just detach the payload adapter and let it deorbit. They're kind of in a high orbit though. They're like 326 kilometers up, which is a little bit higher than they normally deploy Starlink satellites. But it still probably would deorbit. Yeah, I mean, it's still probably going to be months, I would think, but it's going to deorbit. I guess it's going to deorbit. All right, so so this is the end of SpaceX at Vandenberg. I don't think so. I think there'll still be a use case for Vandenberg, but it does make Vandenberg less of a requirement. You could say that. Any news on SN9? Looking at maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. 2-Minute Tuesday is going to start again. Yeah, we'll do more 2-Minute Tuesdays. But yeah, they'll be back at some point. We're still putting out videos, just they haven't been 2-Minute Tuesday videos. The Starlink work in India. Right now, Starlink is covering mostly Canada and the northern United States. I've heard they're also in the UK as well, and they're expanding. I don't know about India. I think India is a little bit too far south right now, but they're working on worldwide coverage. Are rocket launch sites randomly built, or they're built in a specific area on Earth? No, they're built in specific areas. You know, they're rocket launch sites. They're trying to get, you know, away from population, obviously, and we usually try to launch over the ocean so we don't have rocket debris landing like some other rocket companies, and we'd like to bring them down towards the equator if we can. Try to get as close to the equator as possible, because if you're close to the equator, you get a little bit of boost from the speed. Remember, the Earth is spinning, so as you launch, you're getting a little extra boost of speed just by launching close to the equator. When's the next event relating to Starship? The next event will be a flight, and it might be tomorrow. Do a video about Falcon Heavy versus SLS or Starship versus SLS. We might. I think that's a great idea. So the satellites communicate with each other with lasers. Hopefully they don't decide to use them on us. Yeah, they do. They're going to have laser interconnect connections. I think they have those now in the generation. The early satellites that they were launching did not have those laser interconnects, but I think they do have them now. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah, we got a few frames. That's all we got for the Starlink deployment. That's a bit of a bummer, but we might see that again, because I think when's the next, you see, there is another batch of these scheduled for June. So we've got some time, but Transporter-2 scheduled for June. And we got Transporter-3 in December. And I'm sure there'll be more after that, but we've got June and December for the next transporter missions, which are essentially going to be SpaceX's rideshare missions, dedicated rideshare missions. If one of the satellites hits the second stage, would it explode? I mean, I guess it depends on how hard it hits it, but I don't think that would be possible, especially with the way it's spinning like that. I mean, they're going to fling off the end. They do bump into each other occasionally, and that's all right. It's planned. They're expected to possibly bump into each other, so that's not a huge deal. They must be planning mobile service because they've applied it to use on they've applied Starlink on ships. Yeah, the drone ship has a Starlink antenna. We don't know if they're actually using it, but there is a Starlink antenna on the drone ship. And so they're likely going to have some sort of mobile capability. We just don't know. We don't know when that would be available for the general public. Is Jim Bridenstine planning to stay on as the NASA administrator till the first crew returns from the ISS? What are his future plans? No, he's already he is already not the NASA administrator, so he's already out.
American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
So yeah, unfortunately, Jim Bridenstine is no longer the NASA administrator, so this button is gonna have limited use cases now.
American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
So, but yeah, we've got, we won't see Jim Bridenstine around anymore. 2 years is the projection for mobile. It's geo-locked until then. Yeah, that sounds about right. So give him 2 years to get more service capability, more satellites up. How many launches a year to keep the satellite? How many launches a year to keep the satellites in the air? Well, these satellites, I think, have a lifespan that's at least 5 years. I can't remember the exact lifespan, but they're trying to do these pretty regularly, like once or twice a month, to continue building out the constellation and get spares up there too. How many time wasters? Drives him crazy when I use my
American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
I think time waster drives him crazy when I use the Jim Bridenstine button.
American astronauts on American rockets from American soil.
The Starlink look up to the second stage. Does Starlink look up to the second stage for video? I'm gonna say no, but I don't entirely know what that means. GL's in the house. All right, now we're set because GL's made it. What was the blue water screenshot? Oh, thank you for reminding me on that. That's John Hall. It always freaks people out. What'd you say the timestamp on that was? T plus 55. That is inside the liquid oxygen tank. Let's see if we can see it. Where was it? You said 55? Was it 55? But yeah, we got a view inside the liquid oxygen tank. Who knows what the timestamp was? Because that always freaks people out. But there is we did get a view inside the second stage liquid oxygen tank. And essentially, there it is, right there. There's our space mice again, too. Who was asking that? David, over on Facebook, is asking about the space mice. Right here. Liquid oxygen port. Oh, here's their liquid oxygen right there. That is liquid oxygen that we're seeing. Right here. We'll back it up a little more just for David. Here's your liquid oxygen port. Solidifies, causes your space mouse that we're talking about. Right there. There they are. Your space mice that are like the size of raccoons. There they are. Look, you can see the solidified oxygen right there. Here's one coming off the other side and floating away. And then engine ignites and away they go. See ya. But yeah, so the blue liquid here, let's go this view without this. But this blue liquid, this is inside the liquid oxygen tank. So you're seeing this is liquid oxygen right here. So they keep an eye on that for a couple of reasons. But when you're in space, there's no gravity, so there's nothing keeping the oxygen towards the bottom of the tank where all the plumbing is to get it out there. So one, they have to pressurize it. They backfeed the pressure with helium to try to push all that, to be able to push the liquid oxygen out. But also it can still slosh around even while it's pressurized. So usually right before they ignite the engines, they'll use a little bit of thruster fire to kind of give it a little like this, just to so that they can kind of shove the liquid oxygen towards the back of the tank. And then they ignite the engines. But yeah, that's liquid oxygen. That's a camera inside the liquid oxygen tank. Good question. Who was that? John Hall? I meant to cover that, but I forgot all about it. How much does it cost to get a satellite on a transporter mission? How much are these companies paying? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what the cost is. But I would say it is relatively low because it's a rideshare mission, but I don't know what they're paying. Does anybody know what they're paying? Tell me in chat if you know. Right now, the projected service life's 5 to 7 years, depending on orbital parameters. Right, yeah, so that's Starlink satellite. The Starlink satellite's 5 to 7 years that they're expected to stay up there. Would humans drown in liquid oxygen? I'm gonna say yes. Honestly, that's a weird thought. But Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because I don't think our lungs are equipped to handle... Well, first of all, liquid oxygen is like negative 340 degrees, so you would freeze first. But let's pretend that's not an issue. I don't think our lungs are equipped to handle liquids, even liquid oxygen. I have a lot of weird thoughts. All right, let's see. Is it possible to recover the second stage? No, not for the Falcon 9. They're not doing it. Those are space flowers, not the space mice. Yeah, just depends on where they end up on the rocket. All right. Well, I think average cost. Oh, there you go. Foxabilo says the average cost for the Rideshare is $398,000. All right, that's actually lower than I was expecting. But that's according to Foxabilo. Says the average cost for the Rideshare $398,000. Are we expecting a Starship launch tomorrow? If so, how many hours from now? Well, yes, it appears that it's on for tomorrow, unless something changed in the last 2.5 hours that I've been live streaming. But it does appear that we may have a flight tomorrow. We may. But everybody asks when it's going to happen, what time, blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows. Nope, we have no idea. We're just guessing. We don't know when it's going to happen. There have been diving studies on using saturated O2 for breathing. Interesting. Are we expecting... Oh, wait, so I read that one already. Please explain sun-synchronous orbit. So sun-synchronous orbit is going over the poles. And essentially, if you're in a true sun-synchronous orbit, your spacecraft will pass over a specific point on Earth at the exact same time each day, which is really good for observation satellites. Particularly if you want to, compare how an area changes over time. If you pass overhead at the exact same time every single day, you're going to have the same lighting, pretty much on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, you probably have some seasonal changes, things like that. But yeah, essentially, you're passing over the same point at the same time every single day. That would mean, so just to further clarify, means if you're standing on the ground and Starlink 1 passes over at noon and it's in sun-synchronous orbit, then the next day at noon, Starlink 1's coming back over again. When's the next Starlink launch? I think we have a dedicated Starlink launch coming up like in a week from now. All right, let's see, we'll take one more and then we're gonna wrap up. On our last transporter mission launch last year, we paid a little over $500,000, but we had the largest payload on that transporter launch. There you go, that's from Nomadic. So, that still surprised me. I was thinking more like a cost of around like $1 million or something like that. But all right, well, that's even better. So, $500,000, $398,000, like that starts to make things a little more doable cost-wise. Obviously, not necessarily for me personally, or maybe not for you, but for bigger companies, makes it a little more doable. There you go. Foxabilo is clarifying, says sorry that $398,000 is per satellite. Yeah, so I imagine, as kind of like Nomadic mentioned, it probably varies on like how many satellites you're putting on, how big your satellite is, like is it going to take up the whole thing? Like. So, anyways, all right. Well, I think at this point, we're going to wrap up. I'll tell you one more time to consider joining the Discord, and we'll continue the conversation over there. It's free. There's no cost to it. You jump on Discord, chat it up with us. Our friendly Nightbot will give you a link to Discord so that you can join and hang out and join our community of space fanatics. We have a lot of fun over there, and then that's how you get the inner circle knowledge on when Starship is going to launch, hopefully tomorrow. So maybe we'll see you tomorrow for Starship. This is where you really have to turn on the YouTube notifications, because if it happens, you're not going to get much notice, because I don't get much notice. I look at it and I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, yep, looks like it's going to go, you know, maybe in the next 30 minutes to an hour, and I push the go live button. So there's not much notice. So that's where you subscribe and you turn on the Facebook or the YouTube notifications so that you know when we're live again. But if we don't see Starship, the next one will probably be a Starlink launch, which will be later, maybe later in the week. We will see. Anyways, consider joining Discord. It's free. And if you want to take the extra step, maybe support the channel and get access to some of the secret Discord channels or early access to the scripted videos that come out, consider becoming a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member. Now it all goes right back into the channel so we can keep doing stuff like this with you. And if you don't want to do any of that, that's cool. Just come back and watch again. Happy to have you here, contributing to chat and talking it up with us. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to say happy birthday to my friend Trevor, who's listed on our website, one of our Overlook Horizon members. It's his birthday today, so everybody say happy birthday to Trevor in the chat. I don't even know if he's here today, if he's watching, but if you're watching today, I'll send you this clip afterwards. But happy birthday to my friend Trevor. And he's contributes a lot to some of the educational ideas we have on the channel. So happy birthday, Trevor. All right, that's going to be it for me. I'll wrap up. We'll continue the conversation over on Discord. But my name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon. And I'll see you guys, hopefully, for Starship tomorrow. The big Starship SN9 launch. I'm hoping it's tomorrow. But whenever it is. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.